Have you ever shared your biggest dream with someone you loved, only to watch them smile like it was the funniest joke they had ever heard? I have, and that laugh stayed with me long after he was gone. People think heartbreak comes from being left behind. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes heartbreak begins the moment someone makes you believe you're not enough. My name is Emily, and there was a time when I believed every word my boyfriend, Ryan, said. We had been together for almost 4 years. We met in college, survived late-night study sessions, celebrated birthdays together, and made endless promises about the future. At least I thought we did. Ryan was charming. He knew exactly what to say to make people like him. My parents adored him. My friends said I was lucky to have someone so confident and ambitious. What they didn't see was the version of him that only appeared when nobody else was around. Whenever I talked about my dreams, his smile changed. It wasn't the warm smile that had made me fall in love with him. It became a smile filled with doubt, a smile that quietly said, "You can't do it." I had one dream. I wanted to build my own business. Not because I wanted expensive cars or a huge house. I wanted freedom. I wanted to wake up every morning knowing I had created something with my own hands. My mother had worked 2 jobs for most of her life. My father passed away when I was 16, leaving us with more bills than memories. Watching my mother struggle taught me one lesson: never depend completely on someone else. That lesson became my motivation. Every night after work, while most people watched television or scrolled through social media, I studied marketing, business, and online sales. I watched free videos. I read books from the local library. I filled notebooks with ideas. Slowly, my dream became more than just imagination. One Friday evening, I finally gathered enough courage to tell Ryan. "I've decided," I said with excitement. "I'm going to start my own business." For a second, he looked at me without saying anything. Then he laughed. Not a small laugh, not a nervous laugh, a loud laugh, the kind that makes everyone nearby turn around. "You?" he asked, trying to stop laughing. "I mean, seriously," I felt my smile disappear. "What do you mean?" Ryan leaned back in his chair and shook his head. "Emily, you're sweet, but running a business isn't for people like you." I stared at him. "What does that mean?" "It means you're too emotional. You overthink everything. You trust people too easily. You'll lose money within 6 months." Every word landed like a stone in my chest. I tried to defend myself. "I've been studying for almost a year. I've saved money. I even have a plan." He smiled again. "You've been watching videos online. That doesn't make you a businesswoman. You should be realistic. Find a stable job. Forget this fantasy." Fantasy. That one word hurt more than everything else. Because this wasn't a fantasy to me. It was hope. For a moment, I almost believed him. Maybe he was right. Maybe I wasn't smart enough. Maybe dreams really were meant for other people. But something inside me refused to let go completely. That night, after Ryan dropped me home, I sat on my bedroom floor with tears running down my face. My notebook was still lying on the bed. Hundreds of pages. Ideas, plans, budgets, goals. I looked at them for a long time. Then I closed the notebook, not because I was giving up, because I wasn't ready to let anyone laugh at my dream again. The next few weeks felt different. Ryan continued making small jokes whenever business was mentioned. "If you become a millionaire, don't forget me." "Oh, wait. That won't happen." He always laughed afterward, as if it were harmless, as if words couldn't leave scars. Slowly, I stopped talking about my goals around him. Whenever I learned something exciting, I kept it to myself. Whenever I reached a new milestone, I celebrated alone. It was easier than hearing another joke. But silence changes relationships, Ryan noticed. "You've been quiet lately." "I'm just tired," I replied. He accepted the answer. Or maybe he simply didn't care enough to ask again. One Sunday afternoon, we met some of his friends for lunch. The conversation turned toward careers. One of them had just opened a small coffee shop. Everyone congratulated him. Ryan suddenly looked at me. Emily thinks she's going to start a company too. Everyone smiled politely. Before I could say anything, Ryan added, she watches motivational videos and thinks she's the next big entrepreneur. The table exploded with laughter. Someone tried to change the subject. Someone looked uncomfortable. I forced myself to smile. But inside, something broke. The drive home was silent. Ryan finally asked, "Why are you upset?" "You embarrassed me. I was joking. It didn't feel like a joke. You take everything personally." "No," I whispered. "I just wanted you to believe in me." He sighed. "I'm trying to protect you. Dreams don't pay bills." Those words echoed in my mind all night. Dreams don't pay bills, maybe not. But neither does fear. That evening, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror. My eyes were red from crying. I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. When had I become so unsure of myself? When had I started asking someone else for permission to dream? For the first time in months, I asked myself a simple question: if someone truly loves you, shouldn't they want you to grow? Shouldn't they encourage you instead of making you feel small? I didn't know the answer yet, but deep down, I had a feeling this wasn't really about my dream. It was about control, and I was only beginning to see the truth. What I didn't know was that Ryan was hiding something far bigger than his cruel jokes. A secret that would soon destroy everything I believed about our relationship. And when that secret finally came to light, his laughter would disappear forever. People often ask me, "Why didn't you leave sooner?" The answer is simple: because the person who hurts you the most is rarely the person you fell in love with. At least, that's what I believed. When Ryan and I first met in college, he wasn't the man who laughed at my dreams. He was kind, funny, and always seemed to know how to make me smile. On my first day in our marketing class, I walked in late, nervous and embarrassed. The only empty seat was beside him. He smiled and whispered, "Looks like you survived the morning traffic." I laughed, and somehow my nerves disappeared. That one conversation turned into coffee after class. Coffee turned into long evening walks. Before I realized it, he had become the most important person in my life. Ryan always knew the right things to say. When I worried about exams, he reminded me how smart I was. When my mother worked late, he would bring dinner for both of us. When I missed my father, he held my hand and promised, "You'll never have to face life alone again." Back then, I believed every word. He made me feel safe. Or maybe he made me feel like I needed him. There's a difference, but I didn't understand it at the time. After graduation, life became harder. Ryan found a good job at a growing company. I accepted an office position that paid just enough to help my mother with bills. Money was always tight. Sometimes I skipped buying new clothes just so I could pay for groceries. Ryan knew how much pressure I was under. He often said, "Don't worry. One day we'll have everything." Those words gave me hope. We started talking about marriage. We looked at apartment listings online, imagined how we'd decorate our future home, and joked about what we'd name our children someday. It all felt real. Every promise, every plan, every dream, or so I thought. Looking back now, I can see the small warning signs I ignored. Whenever something good happened to me, Ryan's excitement never lasted long. If I received praise at work, he'd quickly change the subject. If someone complimented my ideas, he'd laugh and say, "Don't make her too confident." Everyone thought he was joking, including me. At first, then the jokes became more frequent. "You'd get lost without me. I'm the practical one. You dream too much." Each sentence sounded harmless on its own. Together, they slowly changed the way I saw myself. Without realizing it, I began asking for his approval before making simple decisions. "What do you think? Is this a good idea? Should I do this?" I stopped trusting my own instincts, and he seemed to like it that way. One evening, my best friend Lily invited me out for dinner. She watched me quietly as I talked about Ryan. Finally, she asked a question that caught me off guard. "Emily, when was the last time Ryan celebrated something that was only about you?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" She smiled gently. I mean, not something you both achieved, something you achieved. I searched my memory, a promotion, a successful project. Finishing another business course online, every memory ended the same way. Ryan either ignored it or joked about it. I forced a smile. That's just his personality. Lily wasn't convinced. Maybe, she paused before adding softly, or maybe he's afraid of seeing you become more successful than him. I laughed. No, Ryan isn't like that. At least, that's what I wanted to believe. A few weeks later, Ryan surprised me with a weekend trip to a quiet lakeside town. It felt like old times. We walked along the water, watched the sunset, shared ice cream like we used to. For a moment, I thought things were getting better. Maybe I had been overthinking everything. Maybe stress had changed us. That night, sitting beside the lake, Ryan looked at me and smiled. I love you, Emily. I love you too, he squeezed my hand. Promise me something, anything, no matter what happens, don't let anyone come between us. I smiled. I promise. He looked relieved. At the time, I thought it was romantic. Now, I realize he wasn't asking for trust. He was asking for control. A month later, I received exciting news. A local business competition was accepting applications from new entrepreneurs. The winner would receive funding and mentorship. It felt like the opportunity I'd been waiting for. I spent days preparing my proposal. Every evening after work, I stayed up past midnight refining every detail. For the first time in years, I felt genuinely excited. When I finally told Ryan, I expected him to smile. Instead, he sighed. You're still chasing that? It's a great opportunity. What if you embarrass yourself? I won't know unless I try. He shrugged. I just don't want to watch you get disappointed. His words stung, not because he was being cruel, because a small part of me still wanted his support. I submitted my application anyway. Without telling him, days later, I received an email. I had made it to the next round. I couldn't stop smiling. My hands were shaking as I called Lily. She screamed louder than I did. You did it! I laughed through happy tears. For the first time in months, someone believed in me. That evening, I almost told Ryan. Almost, but then I remembered the restaurant, the laughter, the jokes, the doubt. So I stayed quiet. It was the first secret I had ever kept from him. And strangely, keeping that secret made me feel stronger. Looking back, I realize love isn't supposed to make you hide your happiness. It isn't supposed to make you question your worth. Real love celebrates your victories. It doesn't compete with them. But I still wasn't ready to admit that, because loving someone for 4 years doesn't disappear overnight. You keep hoping they'll become the person they used to be, even when deep inside, you know they've already changed. What I didn't know was that Ryan wasn't just hiding his true personality. He was hiding someone else. And the truth was closer than I could have imagined. There is a strange feeling that comes before your world falls apart. You can't explain it. Nothing looks different. Nothing sounds different. But somehow, your heart knows. Looking back, I think mine had been trying to warn me for weeks. Ryan had become distant. Not cold enough for me to question him, but different enough for me to notice. His phone never left his hand anymore. If it buzzed, he'd glance at the screen and quickly lock it. He started working late more often. Weekend plans were suddenly canceled because of important meetings. Whenever I asked if everything was okay, he smiled. You worry too much. Maybe I did. Or maybe I was trying very hard not to see what was right in front of me. One Friday evening, I decided to surprise him. His favorite bakery had just released a limited edition chocolate cake he loved. I bought one after work and drove to his apartment without telling him. I imagined the smile on his face. I imagined us laughing about how stressful life had become. I imagined everything going back to normal. Instead, I found his apartment empty. The lights were off, his car was gone. I called him. No answer. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. Ryan, still at the office. Big project. I'll call you later. I stared at the message. Then I looked at the dark apartment one more time. Something didn't feel right. I drove home telling myself not to overthink it. But sleep refused to come that night. The next morning, Lily invited me for coffee. The moment she saw my face, she frowned. "You look exhausted." "I couldn't sleep. Because of Ryan." I nodded. She hesitated before speaking. "Emily, can I ask you something?" "Of course. If someone told you they saw Ryan with another woman..." My heart stopped. I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it sounded impossible. "Who told you that?" "A coworker saw him having dinner with someone." They looked close. There has to be an explanation. I hope there is. Lily reached across the table and held my hand. "I'm not trying to hurt you. I just don't want you to be the last person to know." Those words followed me all day. The last person to know. Surely that couldn't be me. Could it? For the next week, I watched Ryan more carefully. I wasn't spying. I was searching for peace. Instead, I found questions. He smiled at his phone more than he smiled at me. He kept turning it face down whenever we were together. One evening, while we were having dinner, his phone lit up on the table. A name appeared, Sophia. Before I could read the message, he grabbed the phone. "Who was that?" I asked. "Just someone from work." "You seemed nervous." "I'm not nervous," he laughed. "There you go again, imagining problems." Then he changed the subject, and somehow, I let him. Days later, something unexpected happened. Ryan forgot his jacket in my car. As I picked it up to return it, his phone slipped out of the pocket and landed on the floor. The screen lit up. A message appeared, "Sophia, I can't wait until she finds out." My hands began to shake. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I wasn't trying to invade his privacy. I wasn't looking for proof, but proof had found me. I stared at the screen, hoping I had misunderstood. Maybe it wasn't about me. Maybe there was another explanation. Then another message appeared, "Sophia. Dinner tonight?" Same place as last week. My chest tightened. Last week. The same night he told me he was working late. I wanted to confront him immediately. I wanted answers. But something inside me whispered. Not yet. For the first time in years, I didn't let my emotions take control. Instead, I waited. I handed his phone back that evening, without mentioning the messages. He smiled. "Thanks." He had no idea that my heart was breaking while I stood there, pretending everything was normal. 2 nights later, Ryan told me he had another late meeting. This time, I followed him. Every second of that drive felt unreal. Part of me prayed I was making a terrible mistake. I wanted to look foolish. I wanted to discover that I had imagined everything. Instead, I watched his car pull into a quiet Italian restaurant. A few minutes later, a woman walked toward him. She smiled. He smiled back. Then, he hugged her. Not like co-workers, not like friends. Like 2 people who had forgotten the rest of the world existed. I couldn't move. I sat in my car with tears running silently down my face. The man who promised I would never face life alone had been building a new future with someone else. I didn't storm into the restaurant. I didn't create a scene. I didn't scream. For some reason, I simply drove away. The silence inside my car was louder than any argument could have been. By the time I reached home, I realized something that hurt even more than the betrayal itself. Ryan hadn't changed overnight. The jokes, the laughter, the way he made me doubt myself. None of it had been random. While I was shrinking to fit into his world, he had already started building another one. The next evening, he came over with flowers. "I'm sorry I've been busy." I looked at the bouquet. Just days earlier, flowers would have fixed everything. Now, they felt like an apology for a lie he hadn't admitted yet. "How was work?" I asked calmly. He smiled. "Long, really? Yeah. What project?" For the first time, he hesitated. "You wouldn't know the client." I nodded slowly. "I see." He leaned forward and kissed my forehead. "I love you." Those 4 words had once been my safe place. Now they sounded empty. I smiled back, not because I believed him, because I finally understood who he really was. And for the first time, I stopped asking myself how to save the relationship. Instead, I started asking a different question. How do I save myself? That night, I didn't cry. I opened my notebook, the one filled with business plans that Ryan had laughed at. I turned to the very first page. At the top, I had written a sentence months earlier. One day, I'll prove that believing in yourself is more powerful than someone else's doubt. I smiled through my tears. Ryan thought he had broken my confidence. He had no idea. He had just given me the reason to fight harder than ever before. And while he was busy protecting his lies, I quietly began building a future he would never see coming. The morning after I discovered Ryan's betrayal, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror with swollen eyes and a heavy heart. For a few seconds, I almost picked up my phone to call him. I wanted answers. I wanted an apology. I wanted him to tell me it was all a misunderstanding. But then I remembered his laughter, the way he had mocked my dream, the way he had made me question my own worth. Slowly, I put my phone back on the table. At that moment, I made a decision that changed my life. I would stop chasing someone who had already stopped choosing me. Instead, I would start choosing myself. It wasn't easy. The first few days were filled with silence. Every corner of my apartment reminded me of the life I thought we were building together. Sometimes I cried while making coffee. Sometimes I cried before going to bed. But every time I felt like giving up, I opened the notebook that held my business plans. Each page reminded me that I had a dream long before Ryan's opinion became my reality. After work, I stopped wasting time wondering where he was or who he was with. I spent my evenings learning new skills, watching business lessons, and improving my ideas. Little by little, my pain became my motivation. Lily noticed the change immediately. "You look different," she said one evening. "I still hurt," I admitted, "but I'm tired of letting that hurt control my life." She smiled proudly. "That's the Emily I've always believed in." Her words meant more than she realized. For so long, I had been waiting for Ryan to believe in me, that I forgot there were people who already did. A week later, I completed my application for the local business competition. Before pressing the submit button, I hesitated. Fear whispered that I wasn't ready. Ryan's voice echoed in my mind. "You'll never make it." For a brief moment, my finger froze over the screen. Then I took a deep breath and clicked submit. It felt like I wasn't just sending an application. I was sending a message to myself. I refused to live inside someone else's doubts. That night, I slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. The pain hadn't disappeared. The betrayal still hurt. But something new had taken its place, hope. For the first time, my future didn't depend on whether Ryan stayed or left. It depended on me. As I closed my notebook and turned off the light, I smiled quietly. He had expected me to spend my days crying over what I had lost. Instead, I was preparing for everything I was about to gain. And somewhere deep inside, I had a feeling this was only the beginning. One day, Ryan would see the woman he tried to discourage standing stronger than ever, and when that day finally came, I wouldn't need revenge. My success would say everything he never believed I could become. 6 months passed faster than I expected. Life wasn't perfect, but it was finally moving in the right direction. My small online business had grown beyond anything I had imagined. What started as a simple idea in an old notebook had turned into a brand with loyal customers. Every order, every kind review, and every new opportunity reminded me that believing in myself had been the best decision I had ever made. For the first time in years, I woke up excited about the future instead of afraid of it. Then, one rainy Thursday afternoon, life surprised me again. I had been invited to a local business networking event. The room was filled with entrepreneurs, investors, and people sharing stories about their journeys. I was talking with another business owner when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "Emily?" My heart skipped a beat. I turned around. It was Ryan. For a moment, neither of us spoke. He looked almost the same, but something was different. The confidence that once filled every room had faded. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his smile looked forced. "You look amazing," he finally said. "Thank you," I replied politely. He glanced at the name badge hanging around my neck. "So, you actually started your business?" I smiled. Yes, I did. For the first time since we met, Ryan had nothing clever to say. The silence between us felt strangely peaceful. "I've seen your company online," he admitted quietly. "People are talking about it everywhere." Hearing those words from the man who once laughed at my dreams felt unreal. Months ago, I had imagined this moment 100 different ways. I thought I would be angry. I thought I would remind him of every hurtful word he had ever said. But standing there, I realized something unexpected. I didn't need to. Life had already answered for me. Ryan looked down before speaking again. "I guess I was wrong about you." His voice carried a regret I had never heard before. I simply nodded. "We all make choices, Ryan." He looked at me with sadness in his eyes. "I wish I had supported you." For a brief second, I remembered the girl who had cried herself to sleep because she wanted those exact words. But that girl no longer existed. She had been replaced by someone stronger, someone who no longer needed approval from the person who once doubted her. A member of the event staff walked over and smiled. "Emily, they're ready for your presentation." I thanked her and turned back to Ryan. "It was good seeing you. I hope life treats you well." Before he could answer, I walked toward the stage. As the audience applauded, I looked around the room and noticed Ryan standing quietly in the back. He wasn't laughing anymore. He was watching. And for the first time in my life, I realized that the greatest lesson isn't making someone regret losing you. It's becoming the person you were always meant to be, even after they stopped believing in you.